Hello, this is We Have Cookies, or We Have Biscuits as this channel is called. And I'll be playing Rayman 2, the PS1 version, because PS1 version is very different. And well, I of course am going to start a new game. So, Rayman 2 is, I think, one of my favourite games, and this version is the version I originally played, but
Rayman,
I
look
didn't
what the pirates have done to our world.
I didn't really know that this version
A planet of
was actually the
anguish and
worst
pain,
version
haunted by evil.
out of all the Rayman games, out of all the Rayman 2
Dark place,
versions,
teeming with fierce
as
monsters.
this one was made by a
Nothing
completely
is
different
safe
studio to the
now
others
after
for some
the-
reason. I don't know why, but
They've taken everything
they
from
managed
peaceful
to
people to slaves.
essentially mess it up big
The
time.
robots search for
But it's still
innocent
good.
prey.
It's not, I mean, I'm making it sound like it's really bad, but it's not really. I mean, it's still, a lot of it is still good,
The 800
I mean, there's still the
lungs of
music,
ancient
and it
scattered.
controls just as good,
We
and most of the levels are just as good, but some of them are different, and there's also some missing levels.
You are our only hope.
So, I'm not really going to focus too much on the game all the way through it. Basically, since this is the first series on my channel that it's going to be on, the way it's going to be is basically
Wake up
pretty much every game I play, I'm going to talk about the game, the actual game I'm playing, until, I don't know, whenever I have said all there is to say about it. And then talk about, like, not only just the game I'm playing, like, either other versions of the game or other games in the series, that sort of stuff. And then I'm just going to talk about other things. It may be games, it may be something more personal. I don't know. It could be anything. Because you can't really talk about a game
Rayman?
constantly for as long as a game is.
Are you okay, Rayman?
And while this game isn't super long, it's still,
Not
it's
really. I feel weak in my
it's a
powers
couple
have
of hours
disappeared.
long at least.
You know,
Anyway, you're
Glowbox,
probably
I think
noticing
this
if you've
might be
played
the
any of the
end.
other Rayman 2 games that this version has English voice acting, while actually it also supports Spanish and French and German, and I think Italian, maybe other languages as well.
A silver lamb.
But
Incredible.
I
can feel
believe
its energy building up in me.
the version
Now I can shoot with my fist again.
that I am playing, which is the European one that was in the UK, is only English, Spanish, and French, I think. And then I think there's a different version that has like German and Italian
Let's go see
and
Lee.
whatever the other
She'll give
language
me all
was.
my powers back.
And of course there's an American version. No idea if there's a Japanese version. Don't actually know about that. Possibly. Anyway, so something different about this game that's immediately noticeable is that the lums have like eyes, which like black dot eyes, that kind of look like just one eye. It looks kind of weird, but yeah, I don't know why they changed the look of them in this ever so slightly, but they did. And then we're about to see a very different first level compared to the other versions. And of course, this is on the PS1, so the graphics aren't quite as good as like the PC version, because the PC version you can run in 1080p, and it looks really nice. But of course, the PS1's resolution is not very high, and there's also the wibbly wobbly morphing texture things that the PS1 has that is actually fixable. That there is a emulator that you can use that does actually fix the problem, but yeah, as you can see, this part already is pretty different. So we'll see here that there is Lee here instead of Murphy, so we don't have the whispering noise, which, you know, is kind of a shame it's not in there, but oh well. And there are also 10 lums on this level. So that's kind of strange. I don't know why there's 10, but there are. And there isn't one down by that waterfall. Yeah, so this version I have a lot of nostalgia for, because this is like, you know, when I played Rayman 2, originally this is what I played. Now, of course, I am not actually playing this on a PS1. I am playing it through an emulator because, well, for many reasons. First of all, recording PS1 or even PS2 or the console footage is kind of a pain in the ass. And I don't have like a capture card or anything, so that's why I'm using an emulator. Also, I'm not entirely sure my disc still works for Rayman 2, but it might do. But if I were to actually use the console, I'd use my PS2, because my PS1 broke many years ago, so I don't actually have a PS1 anymore. But of course the PS2 does play PS1 games, so yeah. But the emulator I'm using is called Mednafen. I don't actually know how you pronounce it. It's my emulator doesn't need a frickin' excellent name. That's what it stands for. I don't know why they call it that, but sure. But I'd say this is the most accurate PlayStation 1 emulator you can get. If you want to play PS1 games, this is the way to go. At least, if you're fine with it looking exactly like how it did. If you want graphical improvements, maybe don't use this. I know RetroArch has like a core that's like a modified version of this emulator that has like all the graphical enhancements, including fixing the perspective wibbly wobbly textures. So that is cool, but RetroArch is a pain in the ass for me to use. I don't really understand it properly, and I can't get things working. So, but this works fine, and I actually kind of like it looking bad, because it has a certain charm. Like the PS1 graphical style is cool. I like it. And to actually like control this game, I am using a PS3 controller, because they're, you know, the DualShock 3s are very similar to the DualShock 1s and 2s, with the exception that it has wireless functionality, and you can use it easily on a PC because it has a USB port, and there are triggers on it for L2 and R2 instead of it just being a button. But other than that, they're pretty much identical. Oh, right, okay. Now this is a funny story. You may see I have this save here, and that isn't just me playing it like on my own personally. I actually thought so I've already done this part of the series once, but I thought I was recording. Then I get to the point where I was like, well, I'm going to stop for this session. And then it turns out it wasn't recording at all, and I went like halfway through the game without noticing. I know it's recording this time, I'm pretty sure it is. But basically, I pressed the hotkey that I had set up to record, and for whatever reason, it just didn't. I don't know why, because when I pressed the hotkey again to stop it, it started recording. Because I went to look in the folder where I have the video saved, and there was just a, like, 1 second clip of the end, like, where I stopped. Now, another thing that is very different. This level. Look at this. If you've played the other versions, there is supposed to be like a whole thing here, but there isn't. It's just kind of... yeah. Kind of simplified. I don't know why they did this. It could possibly because of restrictions, but the thing is, like with the PS1, but the N64 version doesn't have these things. Like, the N64 version has like this pretty much the same stuff as the PC version, mostly. So I don't know why, but that's just how it is. Now luckily, they didn't change the soundtrack. If they changed the soundtrack in the PS1 version, that would have been the worst thing ever, but the soundtrack is just as good, so it's all good. So this version, compared to the others, is pretty bad. Like, the, there are many ports of Rayman 2, which can be pretty confusing. If you want to play this game for the first time, you may wonder which version is the best to play. And the short answer would be the PC version, but the long answer would be it's complicated. Because while the PC version pretty much is like the easiest to get, first of all, because it's just on, you can get it on GOG, and it's like super cheap. It's like £4 or something, or whatever your regional equivalent is. And you know, you can get Rayman 1 and Rayman Forever and Rayman 3 on there as well for around the same price, which is pretty cool. And yeah, so that's the easiest way to get it, and it's a good version of the game. It runs well, you know, you can run it at 60 FPS, you can run it in 1080p, or probably even higher. But thing is, maybe you want to play it really depends, because every version kind of has different things about it. So the N64 version, I wouldn't say is worth playing, really. I mean, it's very similar to the PC version, but it's just kind of worse than the PC version because it's, you know, worse graphics, and I believe there are some missing levels in the N64 version. And I think the audio quality isn't as good as well, so yeah, you might as well play the PC version. Especially with the N64 controller being as like weird and awkward as it is. Although, saying that, I've never actually owned an N64, so I haven't really used the controller before, but it looks awkward to use. And other people have said that it is awkward to use, so I'm gonna say that it probably would be for me as well. I want to get this cage. Oh, for God's sake. Oh, okay, I hit it. Yeah, so the N64 version, probably not a good idea. There's the DS version, which is basically the N64 version. Like, pretty much the same. But it's on the DS, so although you could say it's still inferior, in fact the graphics are actually slightly worse than the N64, but in most cases it is just better, because it's portable. It's a portable Rayman, but the issue is, though, since it's on DS, it's D-pad, which You know, it's a 3D game. D-pad's maybe not the best for that. But then they did make Rayman 3D, which is exactly the same, just with better graphics and 3D support. Not that that matters. But you can use the Circle Pad Pro on the 3DS, so that's pretty good. Portable as well. I mean, portable Rayman 2 is pretty cool. But the cool thing about this version, the PS1 version, is that there is... well, some of the levels are different, so it's kind of a... I mean, I wouldn't say you should play this version if you're not already a Rayman 2 fan, because this version is kind of like a version you'd play if either, you know, you just had a PS1 back in the day, or you have this one, you just happen to own it or see it. It's the only reason you get this version. But this version just generally is not worth getting. But on the PSP, you can get this version, because it's a PlayStation 1 game and PSP can play them, so you can play it portably, so that's cool. But then of course you can just get Rayman DS or 3D, but if you have a PSP, you can play this version. So that's definitely a plus, although obviously wasn't a plus back when this came out. And then we have the Dreamcast version. Now, the Dreamcast version is arguably one of the best versions because, first of all, it runs at 60 FPS and has pretty good graphics. It also has basically the hub world that is also in Rayman Revolution, which is the PS2 version, which both of those also have changed. Some of these like 2D sprites we'll see around have 3D models in those versions. So, but you may wonder, well then, isn't the PS2 version just as good, Rayman Revolution? And mostly it's the same, it just doesn't run at 60 FPS, it runs at like 30 and also has some FPS drops. So, but if you don't mind that, play the PS2 version. You can get it either, you know, just on its own, or there was a Rayman 10th anniversary thing, which is what I have, that has Rayman Revolution, Rayman 3, and Rayman M all in one. And I'd say Rayman 3 is definitely worth playing as well, so if you can get that version, it's a great idea. Because both Rayman 2 and 3 are very good. And as for the other versions, are there any others I mentioned? There's one, I think there might be, I'm probably missed out something, but I know there's a like iOS version. I'm just gonna say don't get that one because touchscreen controls are not good for anything. Like, I don't understand how people can play games properly on a mobile device. Unless you could use a controller with it, but I'm not sure if you can. If you can somehow use a controller, like a Bluetooth one, by all means. Although I doubt it's that good. So basically I'd say the versions to play are, the PC version is the easiest to get, like, you know, since you can download it and it's like, you know, you don't have to worry about trying to find a copy that, you know, aren't being made anymore. So, yeah. With the Dreamcast, you know, Dreamcast is old and PS2 is old, so finding those copies maybe isn't... It's probably going to be more expensive. In fact, I will say it definitely will be. I can't imagine them being cheaper than they are on GOG, because it's like £4 on GOG, and I'm sure it goes on sale sometimes. But anyway, I may have missed some differences between them. I haven't played every single version. I haven't played 3D, but I'm pretty sure 3D is the same as DS, just on the 3DS. I have played the Dreamcast version, although I did play it emulated. So, of course, yeah, emulation is an option. You can play pretty much any of the versions emulated, other than 3DS. But you know, there's no real reason to unless you were to play this version, PS1 version.